It began on December 20th, 1968, on a lonely stretch of road in Vallejo, California. Teenagers David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen had parked their car to spend some time alone, like thousands of young couples before them. But that night, something far more sinister watched from the dark. A vehicle pulled up behind them. A man stepped out. He approached slowly and then fired. Betty Lou died instantly, shot 5 times in the back as she tried to flee. David was shot once in the head, execution style. It was brutal, sudden, no warning. Police were baffled. There were no motives, no suspects, trail of blood, with just silence covered over it. Welcome to Dark Whispers, where fear finds its voice. If you love to listen to paranormal investigations, creepypastas, and unsolved mysteries, do surely subscribe and hit the bell icon for more notifications. And if you love to listen to any particular story, do hit us back in the comments. And without any further ado, let's get back to our story. Then in July 1969, another young couple was attacked in the same way. But this time, the male victim, Michael McJoe, survived. And soon after, the first letters began to arrive. Handwritten notes to newspapers, taunting confessions, threats. Each letter began with the same phrase: "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking." And each was signed with a cryptic symbol, a circle with a cross through it, a target. When the Zodiac Killer first struck, he didn't merely want to kill. He wanted fame. He wanted the world to know his name and to fear and tremble at it. On August 1st, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters arrived at the offices of San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each letter began with a simple but chilling opening. "Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman." In painstaking, messy handwriting, Zodiac detailed facts only the murderer could know. The specific ammunition used, the positions of the victims' bodies, the wounds, proof that he was telling the truth. Attached to the letters was something even more disturbing: a cipher, a cryptogram made of 408 symbols, a jumbled mess of letters, circles, and cryptic marks, promising to reveal his identity if solved. He demanded the ciphers be printed on the front page of each newspaper. He threatened mass murder if they weren't, promising to cruise around all weekend, killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with a dozen people over the weekend. The public was terrified. Was this a madman, a genius, or both? Teachers Donald and Betty Harden cracked the cipher within a week. The solution was chilling. It stated, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest. Because the man is the most dangerous animal of all." The cipher revealed no name, no identity, only a window into the mind of a predator who saw humans as a mere sport, a killing. Over the next 2 years, the Zodiac would continue sending letters, threats against school children, mockery of police officers, bragging about murders that might not even happen. He became a celebrity of fear, one who wore invisibility like an armor. September 27, 1969, Lake Berryessa. A beautiful afternoon, golden sunshine, blue skies, birds flying all over. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, 2 college students, decided to spend the day lounging by the shoreline. But in the shadows of the trees, someone was watching. Out of nowhere, a man appeared, wearing a bizarre medieval-looking hood made of black fabric. On his chest, a strange white symbol stitched crudely into the cloth, a crosshair. He was armed. He told him he was an escaped convict from a prison in Montana, claiming he needed the car, money, and keys to escape to Mexico. He spoke calmly, almost rehearsed. Brian tried to reason with him, but the man pulled out lengths of pre-cut plastic clothesline and forced Cecilia to tie Brian's hands behind his back. When she was done, he tied her up too, tightening the knots with chilling expertise. And then, the true horror began. Without warning, the masked man drew a foot-long knife and began stabbing Brian 6 brutal thrusts into his back. Cecilia screamed and fought, but she too was stabbed 10 times, left to bleed out on the grass. Before he left, the killer did something even more bizarre. He walked over to Brian's Volkswagen, pulled out a black marker, and scrambled a grim message on the door. Vallejo, 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27/69, 6:30 by knife. He recorded the dates of his previous murders. He proudly signed it. Then, the Zodiac calmly walked away, disappearing into the woods, unseen. Both victims were discovered hours later by a fisherman who heard their cries. Brian survived, barely. Cecilia succumbed to her injuries 2 days later. At Lake Berryessa, the Zodiac had escalated. He wasn't just shooting from a distance anymore. He was getting closer, and he was savoring the fear. October 11, 1969. This time, the Zodiac struck in the heart of San Francisco. Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver, picked up a passenger in the city's bustling Union Square district. The fare asked to be taken to Presidio Heights, an upscale and quiet neighborhood. But something was off. When they reached the corner of Washington and Cherry Streets, the passenger shot Stein in the back of the head. He didn't run. He calmly leaned over the dying man's body, took his wallet, his keys, and then, in a horrifying final act, tore away a bloody piece of Paul's shirt. 3 teenagers witnessed the scene from a second-floor window. They called police and gave a clear description. A white male, 35 to 45 years old, wearing glasses, stocky build, and crew cut. The police responded quickly, but due to a dispatcher error, officers were told to look for a black suspect. They passed a man calmly walking away from the crime scene and let him go. Days later, the San Francisco Chronicle received another letter. Inside was a new message from the Zodiac, and a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt, torn and mailed like a twisted souvenir. He boasted about how easy it was. He mocked the police for letting him get away, and he threatened a new target: school children. In the letter he stated, "Just shoot out the front tire and pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." The whole city fell into a panic. School buses were followed by patrol cars. Children were pulled from classrooms. San Francisco, one of the nation's most vibrant cities, was being held hostage by a faceless killer. In the days after the murder, witnesses reported seeing a man in the Presidio area, walking along paths and hiding in shadows. One police officer swore he spoke to a man who fit the description, but had no reason to detain him at the time. If true, then Zodiac stood face to face with a cop and walked away into the night. So many suspects, so many dead ends, so many what-ifs. The Zodiac Killer wasn't just a murderer. He was a phantom puppeteer, pulling the strings of fear, watching cities tremble, then vanishing like smoke. And in San Francisco, he proved something terrifying. Even in broad daylight, among thousands, he could kill, laugh, and leave without a trace. Parents were terrified. Police were overwhelmed, and the media fed the fire. The Zodiac's letter kept coming, 21 in total, many containing ciphers, details of crimes, and gruesome threats. He claimed 37 victims, but only 5 were ever confirmed. And then he vanished into thin air. Arthur Lee Allen was the first and the most persistent name on the law enforcement's radar. He was an elementary school teacher from Vallejo, fired for inappropriate behavior with the students. A recluse, a man with dark hobbies including a fascination with ciphers and killing for sport. He wore a Zodiac brand watch, complete with the crosshair logo. He owned the same type of boots found at the Lake Berryessa. And he allegedly told a friend that he dreamed of murdering people and calling himself the Zodiac. When police searched his home in 1991, they found homemade bombs, tapes about torture, and disturbing writings. It seems like they had their man. But then, the forensic evidence failed. His handwriting didn't match, his DNA didn't match the stamp on the Zodiac letters, his fingerprints were not a match. Allen died in 1992 of a heart attack, taking his secrets to the grave. To this day, some still believe he was the Zodiac. Others are convinced that he was just a very sick man obsessed with the myth. The second suspect was named Rick Marshall. Rick Marshall was a loner, a movie projectionist in San Francisco, with a passion for codes, radios, and obscure broadcasts. He lived near many of the crime scenes. He typed with a specific typewriter that closely matched the letters. His background was riddled with odd behavior and paranoia. Though he was never arrested, Marshall became a favorite suspect for online sleuths. But like Allen, no hard evidence ever struck. He remained a ghost in the case, haunting it, but never owning it. The third suspect is Lawrence Kane, the creeping stalker. A Navy veteran and a diagnosed schizophrenic who suffered brain trauma in a car accident. He lived in the same building as one of the Zodiac's potential victims. He matched multiple eyewitnesses' descriptions, and most chilling of all, Darlene Ferent's sister claimed that he had stalked Darlene in the weeks before her murder. Kane also worked in the area where Donna Lass, a possible Zodiac victim, disappeared. But again, no fingerprints, no confession, only a trail of red flags and unresolved terror. The fourth suspect is Ross Sullivan. Now Ross here is a tall, brooding, brilliant, and deeply disturbed suspect. He worked at the Riverside City College Library, where Cherry Jo Bates was murdered in 1966, a case some believe was Zodiac's first murder. Sullivan disappeared right after her murder, then reappeared, acting erratic, wearing the same military-style boots used in Zodiac's later crimes. His physical appearance matched composite sketches. He was obsessed with cryptography, he had a history of mental illness and a violent ideation. But like all the others, Ross Sullivan was never charged, never proven guilty, only always close. What made the Zodiac so terrifying was not just the murders, it was the intellect, the calculated precision, and the way he controlled the public with fear, and the media with riddles. He turned murder into art. And worse, he was never caught. It's been over 50 years. The letters have stopped. The killings, as far as we know, have ended. But his shadow still looms. Podcasts, movies, books, online sleuth communities, endlessly decoding every letter, every cipher, every pause on the police scanner. But the Zodiac still remains one of the most unsolved cases in American history. He watched us then, he taunted us, and now he fades into legend. But legends never truly die. Sometimes they just change faces.